this down. There we go. Okay. There we go. Okay. Here we go. So we have the article from Maxim Dlugy, and it says, a grandmaster and chess professional for more than 40 years, I have found myself dragged into the cheating controversy rocking the chess world following the release of confidential emails by chess.com, a company with a huge financial stake in supporting the version of events pushed by chess world champion Magnus Carlsen. All right, first thing that I'm gonna stop and say something to begin with. So a lot of people have been talking about how chess.com is supposed to be pushing a certain narrative. I'm just gonna drink a little bit of water. But I will actually give you guys a very contrarian take on this. My contrarian take on this is that I don't actually really believe that, and the reason that I don't believe that is because at the end of the day, chess.com made an offer to buy Play Magnus Group for $82 million. So chess.com makes this offer. What are they actually getting out of it? A lot of this is about Chessable, which is very, very profitable, as well as Magnus Carlsen, the world champion. Great reputation, a lot of goodwill over many years of playing the game. So to me, the way I look at this is actually quite the opposite. I feel like chess.com, if anything, they're the ones who offered the Play Magnus Group $82 million to buy them out. Honestly, I feel that chess.com should be like, oh man, well, Magnus has done all this stuff, everything's sort of blowing up. Why are we going to buy this? Like, why are we spending $82 million when we could get this for a lot cheaper potentially? So I actually have a different take, which is that I think this notion that chess.com wants this is kind of questionable in a way, because they could be like, oh yeah, Magnus has just ruined his reputation, everyone's like all up in arms about the whole cheating thing. We could just like decide to cancel the deal and come back tomorrow and offer like $40 million. So I actually have a contrarian take on that. At any rate, let's keep going. Okay. The first bolt from the sky came when Magnus said that I was a mentor to Hans Nieman, a former student of mine with whom I've kept an occasional touch over the years, insinuating that I helped him cheat. Then came calls from reporters seeking comment on 2-year-old emails between chess.com and me. The website had agreed in written form to keep confidential and released without my consent. Okay, so very interesting from a legal standpoint. So Dlugy is saying quite clearly here that Dlugy is saying quite clearly here that these were confidential and released without his consent. If this is true, I mean, of course there's probably more to this, but if this is actually true, then Dlugy should sue them, right? If it's true, like he's saying that they released it without his consent, then shouldn't he sue them if that's the case? Why is he putting out a statement? It's not true. Okay, well, it's not. Okay, fair enough. Okay, but he's saying quite clearly here that it's confidentially released without his consent. So of course, if that's true, he should just sue them. In a roundabout way, the exchanges could be purported to prop up claims made by Magnus, with whom chess.com just happens to be negotiating a huge financial deal. So even though I had absolutely nothing to do with the now infamous match between Magnus and Hans, I am now compelled to defend myself against completely absurd and slanderous accusations made against me. All right. My chess career. I've been involved in chess for the vast majority of my life. I won my first chess tournament when I was 15 years old. I won the World Junior Chess Championship in 1985. Was the highest rated blitz player in the World Blitz Chess Association in the period between. All right. 1988 to 1992. In the period between 1988 and 92, and tied for first in the World Rapid Championships in 1989. I also was elected as one of the 7 members of the Grandmasters Association's board of directors in 1989 and as president of the US Chess Federation in 1990. More flexing, you guys, this is going to lead to a perfect segue after this, okay? More recently, I was chairman of the Association of Chess Professionals which helped Gary Kasparov and Anatoly Karpov run their bid for FIDE presidency and started an online chess matching service, www.chessreach.com, to match title professionals and chess students. In recent years, I have tried to maintain my blitz form. Now we'll get to this a little bit later on. This is going to lead to a perfect segue, by the way. My official FIDE blitz rating dropped from 2731 about 10 years ago to slightly above 2600. Still, 6 years ago, at the end of the Singfield Cup, I managed to split an informal match of about 50 bullet games with Magnus Carlsen, prompting him to muster a compliment, "You were very strong," when the match was over. Okay. Okay, very random. I'll give you, I wonder if I guess I'm not in here because of course this isn't about me. but there was that video of when I played Max Dlugy at the US Championship, the bullet game that's on YouTube with like 5 million views. After that bullet game, we actually did play a blitz match for I think $250 if I remember correctly, which I won. I think I won something like I don't know what the margin was, but I feel like it was 2-1. It was probably something like 12-6. At any rate, after that match, maybe like a week or two later, Max did send me a check for $250. Maybe I've got the dollar amount wrong, but at any rate, I have also played matches against oh, one of the games is annotated at the end. Okay. So let's keep going. So yes, but back to the point of what I was going to say though, he is a strong blitz player. There's no disputing that that Max Dlugy is a strong blitz player. As a coach, I helped Garry Kasparov in his matches against Anatoly Karpov, and years later Anatoly Karpov in his rapid tournaments in France and Russia. I was involved with chess.com as one of their banter blitz showmen and as a commentator for a number of their events, and have produced over 30 instructional videos for the website which it displays to this day. In 2013, I orchestrated the capture of the infamous chess cheater Borislav Ivanov. Okay. You can read more about it, and there's a link. I also wrote the book Grandmaster Insides, detailing my chess career, and have recently completed work on the Queen's Gambit accepted book for Russell Enterprises. In 2015, I founded Chess Max Academy on New York City's Upper East Side. Today, we operate 3 locations: Greenwich, Connecticut, New York's Upper East and Upper West Sides, and my students have won more than 20 Nationals Classic titles in the last several years. I have played tens of thousands of games on leadchess.org, chessbase.com, playchess.com, chess24.com, and chess.com. Aside from the incidents on which I will expand below with chess.com, I have never been accused of foul play by any other website or in any over-the-board competitions. Okay. Relationship with Hans Nieman. I met Hans Nieman during the World Youth Championships in South Africa 8 years ago when he was 11. I started working with him around October 2014. In the short 3 to 4 months, he went up from 2150 to 2350. Okay. I was not so much amazed by his progress as I had students who demonstrated similar growth, but by his ability to digest the information I would give him and then improve upon it. All right. Now, this is not saying anything, but 2150 to 2350, there are a lot of people who have these gap jumps. This is not really, I mean, saying anything special. Most of my sessions would take place between rounds of major tournaments on the West Coast, and it was clear that Hans could take information as quickly as a top GM could, immediately being able to implement it in the game he played. When Hans moved to Connecticut with his family, I imagined how much more work we could do together, but unfortunately this was not to be. Various family circumstances prevented us from working together, and though I would always be happy to give him pointers as we would meet in some rapid or blitz events in the NY area, this was no longer an ongoing relationship. When Hans became stronger, he started giving lessons in the neighborhood of Chess Max Academy, which was located on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. He would sometimes stop over for a few minutes to grab a snack, play a blitz game, and then he would be off. I didn't feel he was too serious about his chess career, so I didn't offer to help him out. The change came when he applied to Harvard University and didn't get in. At that point, he made a firm decision to work extremely hard to become the best chess player he could be. As I never demanded anything of him and always supported anything he was doing, Hans reached out, and I was happy to ensure him that if he ever needed any advice or help or ideas on how to improve in chess, I would be happy to offer them. As I mentioned in my Facebook post after Hans beat Magnus, one of these suggestions happened over a year ago as Hans was preparing for the US Junior Championship 2021. I invited Hans to the Chess Max Academy on West 79th Street in Manhattan, and we spent 4 hours going over some complicated endgames to improve his endgame understanding. I truly thought this was his weakest part of the game, and at the time, I truly thought this was the weakest part of the game at the time, and pressed him to do more work on it. All right, and just to give you guys some background, I mean, I know this is making it sound very, very easy and everything, but when I worked with Garry Kasparov in 2011 before the Tata Steel tournament, we also did a lot of work on endgames, and maybe I became better, but I did not suddenly become astronomically better at endgames. All right. More recently, and that's not to say Hans became some like great endgame genius, but it's trying to say this is something that like is some huge thing. It's just a little bit odd. More recently, Hans reached out a bit more for advice on the right coach for him. It took some time, but that issue has also been resolved. To maintain the integrity of Hans's chess preparations, I am not at liberty to disclose the name of his coach. Okay. Now the one thing Oh, did I miss a line? Okay, I did miss a line. My Facebook post thus reflected my jubilation at the fact that it seemed he listened to me, though post factum, as his play in the US Junior Chess Championships, where he misplayed 2 endgames, which cost him a full point, barely enabled him to win the event. Okay. Now, to maintain the integrity of his preparations, I'm not at liberty. There's only one single reason that Hans would not release the name of his coach. The only reason that I can think of that is some huge secret or along those lines is if it's somebody like Kasparov. That's my honest take. Unless it's somebody like Kasparov, Kramnik, or someone of that nature, there is zero reason to have this whole like shroud and secrecy around who his coach is. So that's my read of the situation. Quite simply, is that unless it's Kasparov or Kramnik or somebody of that nature, there's no reason that can't be told. Even the people that I work, the people that Fabiano works with, everybody, it might be kind of a secret, but there's no like hidden, like really hidden things. So the only reason I can think of that actually mattering, other than just trying to like frankly keep people on their toes, is that it's one of those two guys. I doubt it is, but that's the only reason, if there is a legitimate reason, to not say who the coach is. I didn't have anything to do with Hans' success in his game against Magnus, contrary to what Magnus has insinuated, as I don't prepare Hans for his games. That is his own job, and potentially the job of his current coach. Since 2014, I have also not given Hans advice on actual game preparation for any other tournaments, whether online or OTB, as in my opinion, only a full-time coach would have enough knowledge to be able to do this in a professional manner. All right, Magnus Carlsen, accusations. I do consider myself something of a mentor to Hans, though this is clearly a very tentative title, one that is established at both participants' will. On the Monday before Magnus referred to me as Hans's mentor, I had what I believe to be a friendly chat with a mutual acquaintance of mine and Magnus. Clearly, this chat formed the basis of Magnus's claims. All right. So, what does this mean? I had what I believe to be a friendly chat with a mutual acquaintance of mine and Magnus. This is Maxim Dlugy who's talking about this. That's very interesting. Of course I have no idea who this mutual acquaintance is, but definitely seems a little bit surprising to say this is what formed when Magnus randomly dropped it. All right. It looks like Magnus had been told by advisors to avoid direct accusations and work with insinuations. He insinuated that Hans cheated in their game without saying as much, and when it came time to say something of note, he insinuated that Hans has a mentor, myself, who's doing a great job of helping him to play well, which to Magnus now is equivalent to cheating. He then came out openly and claimed Hans has cheated, and he will not be playing in tournaments with him anymore. Magnus's plan is to prove guilt by association. If Hans has a mentor who is a cheat, by definition Hans must be a cheat, and therefore he did cheat in their game, as he looked relaxed, or rather not tense when playing him. Okay. The public was then directed to check out my alleged cheating incidents in 2017 and 2020 on chess.com, which would firmly establish that since I admitted to violating fair play policies of chess.com, I clearly helped or advised Hans that the only way for him to make progress in chess is by cheating. Since Hans has by then already admitted that he has cheated when he was 12 and 16, it would get social media firmly behind the world champion's plan of further implicating Hans by connecting one cheat with another. Okay. There are a number of problems with this concept. Although to cheat with an actual device, you do need an accomplice who has access to the device with a chess engine running on it. You also need a connection to the device, which, given the precautions taken at the time of many modern tournaments, especially the Sinkfield Cup, is not even remotely a possibility. Okay. Wow. Okay, you guys, this is the first time where I'm like wowed by this. This is absolute, complete, and utter rubbish. This is absolute, utter rubbish. When he says there are precautions taken, he is 100% wrong, and I can give you guys a flat-out, straight example of a top tournament which happened, is no longer going on, in the London Chess Classic, which occurred from about 2009 December till December of 2019, I believe was the last edition of it. That event was held. There was no security. Basically, you go and you leave your jackets in a VIP room where there were like analysis, snacks, things like this. You leave your jacket there, you go into the auditorium, you play your game. There were no security checks done. Now, as I've alluded to before, there were certain years when I played there when both myself and Jan Nepomniachtchi were going to the restroom too often, and one of the arbiters would basically follow us till we went into the bathroom and then follow us back, kind of like a security guard or something like that. But the sheer notion saying that it's not even remotely a possibility is 100% wrong. 100% wrong. Whether I say that, whether Daniel says that, that is not true. That is just not true. Straight up. Okay. None of the specialists tasked to find anything wrong with the actual Carlsen Niemann game in question came up with anything substantive pointing to any outside influence in generating moves. In fact, Hans has on at least 2 occasions during the game relinquished much of his advantage gained in the early opening phase, but Magnus failed to capitalize on it. Okay, Ken Regan, the accepted foremost authority on the subject, presented a detailed report where he found no evidence of Hans using an engine, neither in that particular game nor in any other over-the-board game. This hardly gives merit to the idea of a device passing moves on to Hans during the game. Okay. There is no plausible method known to me or anyone I know, including thousands of social media posts, where I could be acting as an accomplice to Hans' insinuated cheating in his game with Magnus. There is no device, there is no actual cheating, and I was in New York City when the game was played. Okay, now this is not, I think, what Magnus was implying if we read into it, but that's a fair point. My relationship with Hans is explained above. There is no work done on tournament or game preparation between the two of us going on now or in the last 8 years, except for the 4-hour session before the US Junior Championship 2021, focused entirely on endings. Managing 3 physical academies in Manhattan and Connecticut, as well as 7 school programs and an online school, doesn't give me enough time to work with players such as Hans, and so this possibility is a non-starter. Okay. And now I think we're finally going to get to the interesting stuff, because I think this is what everybody wants to see in the article, which is Maxim Dlugy's chess.com history. The emails submitted by chess.com show that I indeed violated their fair play guidelines twice in 2017 in 2 tournaments where one of my students in a class was shouting out moves together with other students while consulting with the engine. I realized that the accusations in 2017 had some truth to them a few months later, only after I caught the student in question cheating. Now I'm also going to give you guys another hot take. I do not believe this for a second that Dlugy only realized this a few months later. I can tell you that if let's just say tomorrow let's just say I do a meet and greet and I decide, you know what, I'm gonna play a match with like 20 kids, you know, let's say there are a bunch of kids who come to the event, and tomorrow's Title Tuesday even, so it's even better. So as an example, tomorrow's Title Tuesday, I decide tonight, you know what, I'm gonna go drive to St. Petersburg over on the other coast of Florida. I'm gonna go to the chess club. I'm gonna have like 20 kids or 20 fans, doesn't matter, kids, adults, whatever. They're allowed to sit, they're allowed to watch me, cheer me on, and you know, if they have some suggestion, they can give me a suggestion. And I guarantee you that within, maybe not the first move, but within probably 3 or 4 moves, I would start to realize that something is wrong. So I actually think this is complete nonsense when he says he only realized a few months later, because Dlugy is a very strong grandmaster. He's also good enough to know when these are moves that are not normal. So this I just call complete BS on, because he only realized a few months later. I mean, if Dlugy is running through the tournament doing really well and kids are giving him suggestions, you're gonna know within I would say not more than 10 moves, and I think 10 moves is being very generous. I think it's probably 3 to 4, maybe 5 moves, 10 moves maximum, but you're gonna realize, you're gonna know. All right. In 2 turns where one of my students in a class was shouting over the moves together with other students while consulting the engine. Oh, right, sorry. Let me, it's only one more sentence to reread. I realized that the accusations in 2017 had some truth to them only a few months later, only after I caught the student in question cheating. As soon as this happened, I immediately reached out to Danny Wrench and admitted to the breach of fair play guidelines that I didn't know I had committed until that moment. Okay. Okay. As I said, it's very hard for me to believe that, but let's keep going. I admitted that this was a violation, though the recent videos of Magnus Carlsen receiving advice from one of the top British players, David Howell, to beat a major competitor in a money tournament on LeechChess.org seems to be a larger violation. As he willingly played the move which won the game on the spot. Okay, this is this is stretching a little bit. This is really stretching. It can be seen clearly in the video that Magnus didn't take this too seriously, admitted that he was cheating on the spot. Okay, in my case, I truly had no reason to believe that I had actually cheated, and was adamant that I did not cheat until I realized what was happening months later, as the thought that kids rated over 1,000 points lower than me helping 1,000 points lower than me could be helping me play better never occurred to me. I'm sorry, you guys. This is, oh my gosh. I'm sorry. This is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Dlugy is a very strong grandmaster. Saying that kids who are like 1600 up to maybe like 1900 are giving you moves and you don't realize when you're playing the game, like, I'm sorry. He's been playing chess for his whole life, just like I have and so many others have. This is completely ridiculous. This is complete nonsense. It just is plain and simple. So, all right. Okay, where were we? I think I was negligent to not imagine that such a thing could occur, but having apologized for it and having offered to return the prize money for the event, an offer Danny Wrench did not comment on, I think I did as much as anyone would under the circumstances. Okay, that's fine. It's just this notion that somehow he didn't know. I'm sorry, but that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. You know, the level, and this is not to make any other people catch strays, but I would say the level where maybe you would not actually realize that's going on is probably like the strong IM level, like maybe like up to maybe 2450, 2500. I think it's plausible that someone would not know. When you've been playing chess for 40 years, you're like 2600 at your peak, played against the best players in the world. I don't for a second believe that you didn't realize right away. All right. Okay, here we go. Thank you so much for the raid. Thank you so much. On May 10th of 2018, Danny Wrench offered to me to start playing Title Tuesday tournaments by October if I started streaming. This was my reply. Hi, Danny. I am fine using my current Best in Blitz account, and so if you could switch it to my name, it would be fine. Problem is, my groups are not allowing me to compete in Title Tuesdays because of the time conflict, and clearly, I am not going to repeat what happened with the students offering advice. So until my new academy gets off the ground, allowing me my personal time, I won't be able to compete or stream during those events. Hopefully by January 1st, 2019, I will be available to play or otherwise participate in the Pro Chess League, so that solution seems most likely. If anything changes in my schedule and I can start playing and streaming the Title Tuesday earlier, we can revisit. Okay, fair enough. In 2019, I resumed playing on chess.com. Although this, I don't know that this email, it looks like these are like cherry-picked emails. Speaking of cherry-picking, because we know everybody loves that word. So it's only showing one email, like one email and one reply. In 2019, is Levy in chat? I don't see Levy. Maybe Levy wrote something. I didn't see it. Oh, he said me. Okay. In 2019, I resumed playing on chess.com and was kicked out of a tournament for no apparent reason. Here's the email exchange between me and Danny Wrench pertaining to that event. Again, it's one email, so I mean, it's very hard to understand what's going on here. Hi, Maxim. First, my apologies for the delay. I wanted to be sure what happened before responding. Your removal from the tournament was based on old information from our Fair Play team, and the action was taken based on the understanding that a restriction for you to compete in prize events was still in order. I have now confirmed to my team that your restriction is lifted and that you are free to compete in prize events once more. My apologies for the inconvenience, Danny. Danny Wrench, Chief Chess Officer at Chess.com LLC. Okay. There was another Title Tuesday event around the same time where I started with 4 out of 4 before the chess.com server crashed. After wasting 2 hours, including the waiting time to hear announcements, it was announced that the afternoon's tournament's prizes will be combined with morning prizes, and the results of this morning event are annulled. All this made my participation in Title Tuesdays a rare phenomenon, as I simply had too much going on in my life at the time. Yet in the spring of 2020, I decided to play again. Now, I remember this. I remember this Title Tuesday because I played in it. They canceled it, and then I think they doubled the prizes next week. So I've been around so long that I do remember this event. All right. It should come as no surprise that even if my 40-plus years of a distinguished chess career weren't there, the thought of using engine assistance, given the above history, would be furthest from my mind. Okay. Okay. In the spring 2020 tournament, which I played in after my account was fully reinstated, three years after the 2017 events, I was kicked out by chess.com during the 9th round of the tournament, where I had a score of 6.5 out of 8 while not using any outside assistance. Okay, well, again, if this is the case, my attitude towards all this is quite simple. Just go to court, dude. Just go to court. What's the big deal? You said that you already said earlier that basically they released emails which are confidential. You're saying that they kicked you out of tournament when you weren't using any assistance. Just go to court, dude. What's the big deal? Why are you putting this in a post? Just go to court. What's the big deal? Because he's saying this, so I don't know what the event was. This might be the event that Benjamin Bach did some commentary on. I'm not sure about that, but Benjamin might have made a video on this title Tuesday. I was shocked by this as I was playing the tournament from my apartment and could not understand what occurred. I was informed that I was kicked out for fair play guidelines violations, and that given the past history, I would have 72 hours to confess to anything regarding fair play guideline violations, or my account would be closed permanently. All right, very aggressive. Chess.com, 72 hours. Like, you better confess. We're the popo. If you don't confess, like, you're done, man. You're done. Okay. This created quite a dilemma. On the one hand, from my previous discussions with Danny Wrench on the subject, it became quite obvious that he believes in Chess.com methodology more than in anything else. Although I haven't recently studied the materials on the Chess.com website, I found out that it turns out that 5 or 6 appeals per month are actually satisfied and those accounts are reinstated. I simply didn't have the time to deal with the situation. Okay. And since I took Chess.com at their word that the email exchange would continue to be confidential and private as stated in all of their correspondence, I made the mistake of agreeing to admitting that I used some help in some games of the event. The flip side would be potentially worse. Okay. So here's what I'm going to say. As a grandmaster and having played and knowing how this world is, if you're wrongly accused of cheating, you are not going to just sign something. You're not going to sign it. You say you don't have time. Just basically go and say you didn't cheat. You know, you could even show the game to other grandmasters. There's so many ways of handling this. Now I will say that I think for players who are not, say, as prominent or title players, this could be a very serious situation because they, of course, don't have that sort of gravitas or prominence. I'm sure there's another word, but they don't have that prominence. So players who are lower rated, it could be a real problem. Absolutely. But somebody who's a grandmaster like Dlugy, who knows all these top players, I refuse to believe for a second that he could not have gone and spoken to some of them. People like myself, frankly, like I feel like there are people he could have gone and asked, and like if I look at the games, I'm like, yeah, I mean, okay, these games are normal. Like, what are they doing? Word would start to spread, and it would not be a situation where Chess.com would have to do a deep dive, and so I just don't buy it. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. Now I could be wrong. There is a chance that Dlugy is being honest about this, and that Chess.com, they were like, okay, 72 hours, we caught you red-handed, that's that. At the end of the day, if there is some mathematical formula where it shows that like you made certain moves and there was like 0.01% of it those being possible, it's very hard to suddenly believe the GM over the algorithm they have, which basically figures this stuff out. All right. I would always be wait, where did he say? Wait, where were we? Okay, when you're kicked from chess.com, rumors start circulating immediately that you cheated and therefore were kicked out. Remembering the messages I got back in 2017, I decided that it's best to admit to wrongdoing, and if they ever made this public, I would be able to prove that I didn't cheat by simply analyzing the games in question. Sadly, it has come down to this. Since chess.com can now no longer be trusted with keeping their promises, I will have to do what I do best, analyze chess games. My analysis of the games in question will be at the bottom of the statement. I would also like to mention that since I confessed to violating fair play guidelines, my account was reinstated by chess.com, and until recently I regularly played using this account, which I agreed with chess.com would remain anonymous. The account is known by a handful of my friends as well as my students. It is a titled GM Diamond account. Okay, all right, and there's also my battle with the Russian legal system. Okay. When my name was first brought up in the scandal, a number of articles made a point of mentioning that I was imprisoned for embezzlement in Russia as further proof that my character is that of a cheater. This is in reference to my waiting for a trial in a Russian holding cell 17 years ago, a deeply painful and damaging time in my and my family's life. At the time, some business rivals with close ties to Putin's government used my friendship with Garry Kasparov, who besides his role in the chess world was one of Putin's most vocal critics, to have me arrested and force a sham trial. Even with the full force of the Russian judicial system working with the prosecution to keep me detained, they eventually had to acquit me when none of the false evidence could stand up to scrutiny. After I was acquitted, Garry sent his own head of security to make sure I made it back to Moscow safely. That evening, I had dinner with Garry and his mother before flying back to New York the following day. Okay, all right. Wall Street Journal has a new video. We'll get to that. So there's some game. I guess the games are here. I'm not going to go through the games right now, but there is one thing I want to show you guys. So just to show you guys, since you know, this does not speak to character, but I did find something recently, so let me open this PDF that I have. 1 second, maybe it will open with Acrobat. 1 second. Okay, so there is one thing that I do want to show you guys. Let me adjust the scene because this is great. All right, so I will show. Let's go back here, right? Wait, there we go. All right, let's take a look at this this New in Chess magazine. So this is New in Chess. I think you guys can see it, right? You guys can see it if I'm not mistaken. You tell me. Let me scroll down. Okay, so there's just a couple priceless things in here. Where were we? It's not about Hare Krishna. Oh, you guys. Oh, wait, sorry, you guys can't see it. What am I doing? There we go. All right, so this is from New in Chess magazine. Let me scroll down. It's one of the later articles. I think it's somewhere down here. It's a pretty funny article. Let me keep scrolling. This is a PDF. This is New in Chess magazine, by the way, to be completely clear. Where is it? Somewhere down here. Okay, it's not about Gawain. Let's keep going. Some great articles. Okay, where were we? It's somewhere down here. Wait, is that me? No, it's not me. Never mind. Okay, 1 second. I think it's the next article. Sorry, I'm just scrolling because I don't know exactly where it is in here, but it's towards the bottom. Okay, here we go. We have an article called "The Blitz Whisperer" by Maxim Dlugy. Now, I'm not really going to go through this entire article, you guys. But there are just a couple priceless things in here. The first one is, are the new rising grandmasters really as good as their rating suggests? Certainly not in all aspects of the game, Maxim Dlugy contends. Taking a closer look at the Blitz games he himself played against the young superstars, he detects weaknesses and shows what they still have to work on. Okay, now I'm not really gonna go through the article, but here's the first one. Alireza Firouzja, not familiar with Bobby Fischer's onslaughts against the dragon? Huh, okay. Let's keep going. Vladimir Fedoseev missed a few equalizing lines in the endgame. Okay. Next up, what do we have? We have a couple more here. We have Parham Magsudaloo, lack of understanding of the King's Indian pawn structure. And two more. Next, we have Pavel Elyanov, saw his strategic plan backfire. And last but not least, we have this great one, which is Daniil Dubov, work to do in the endgame? So I just saw this. I saw this maybe about two weeks ago, and it just made me crack up when I saw it. Yeah, everybody's a noob. Maxim Dlugy is the greatest player of all time. That's my takeaway from this article. Just amazing. I mean, look at these guys like Dubov. What a terrible player. He can't play an endgame very well. He can't play an endgame well. Look at Parham. Look at Elyanov. He doesn't know how to play strategical chess. Look at Parham. Doesn't understand King's Indian pawn structures. Of course, Fedoseev, he doesn't know how to equalize in the end game, and of course, Alireza, like clearly Alireza, he doesn't understand anything about the Sicilian dragon. So I did want to show you guys that because it reminded me of seeing the statement of that. So I just thought it was very funny. I would bring that up very briefly, you guys, because it is pretty funny, no doubt about it.